Right, so club football is in the rear view and we can finally look forward to the World Cup, a tournament for very many reasons has really weirdly had out all of our attention, but at the same time as because of its positioning in the calendar kind of crept up on us, right? And as many football fans are trying to do, as many football media members are trying to do, I'm going to look at the football and let's talk about who is going to win this World Cup. I'm going to be using the Telegraph's pretty cool tournament predictor here, which is going to enable us to speak about some of the favourites for the competition and ultimately make me look like a bit of an idiot when the results start to trickle in. But let's start at the beginning with Group A. The first game of the tournament's going to kick off between Qatar and Ecuador on Sunday. Let's speak about Qatar because this is, the worst host nation ever, really. This is a nation, again, for various reasons, that probably should never have hosted a World Cup to do with the country's size and footballing culture and everything else. Reasons that you can go to Sepp Blatter for, as he said this week that it was a mistake to award Qatar the World Cup. Thanks for that, Sepp. Host nations quite often do well in home tournaments, right? Whether that's because of the fans that they have or the players are used to playing with each other or whatever reasons. And I'm thinking particularly of host nations of smaller teams going back the past 20 years or so. I'm thinking of like South Africa, I'm thinking of South Korea and Japan and Russia at the last World Cup. And Qatar are the worst team of all of those. Despite that, I just have this niggling feeling that they're going to make it through this group, right? This group is Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal and Netherlands. I think Netherlands are the best team in this group, so we'll pencil them in to finish top. Van Gaal's team, and they've got Van Dijk back, who wasn't in the Euro squad, and Depay always plays well for them, and Cody Gakpo, for example, has just been unbelievable in the Eredivisie this year. And then Qatar and Senegal. Senegal are a great team, right? African champions. They're teams like Africa All-Stars. They've Mendy in goal and Koulibaly and Sarr and, of course, Sadio Mane, my beloved Sadio Mane, who left Liverpool last summer. But there's just something about Qatar, who have been on a quest to improve their national team since they were awarded the World Cup, went to CONCACAF and did quite well for themselves. They've got the striker Afif, who's been scoring lots and lots of goals, and I think the way that the fixtures are going to work out, it's good for them. As I said, they play Ecuador in their first game. They then play Senegal, so they don't play the Netherlands until the last game, right? That plays a big part in these competitions where you only play 3 games. For those reasons, added to the fact that Mane might not be fit. He's obviously still been picked, but he went off with an injury. That makes me a little worried. I'm going to put Qatar in second here, just based off, as I said before, South Korea getting to the semi-finals in 2002. That was quite contentious. Russia getting to the quarterfinals, despite many of us thinking going into that tournament they were going to be an absolute shambles. I won't put it past them, for whatever reason, to make it out of this group. We'll put Senegal in third, Ecuador in fourth. Group B, England's group. I think when the draw was made initially for this World Cup, collectively, most people were like, yeah, pretty fine, we'll take that. But then as time has got closer to the World Cup, as some England performances have been less optimal, shall we say, there's been an appraisal of this group. There's been an awareness now that this group has on average, the lowest World Cup ranking. And it's going to be harder than many people initially thought, right? But I think England should still come out on top in that group. Iran, USA and Wales, there's not much really between the 3 of them, I don't think. Again, we have to look at who plays who. And in the first game in that group, England-Iran, but the United States play Wales in their first game. And I think whoever wins that game is probably going to make it through. And I just put the USA ahead in that one. Not by much. As I said, there's not a lot between those 3 teams especially. But I think this USA team, who are quite young, who are obviously looking forward to the next World Cup that they jointly host with Mexico and Canada. I just look at their team. I just like Pulisic and Weston McKennie and the 2 players at Leeds and Gio Reyna. They may be ahead of schedule, but and even with the issues with their manager and the tactics and whatnot, I just think there's too much quality there. And I'd put the USA coming in second, Wales in third, and Iran in fourth. Group C is nice and easy because Argentina are one of my favourites. They are the 4th favourites, I believe. The 3rd favourites to win this competition, and Mexico always make it out the group stage and are longing for game 5, and we'll speak about that in a second. Poland for 3rd for me, Saudi Arabia in 4th. Group D, one of the 2 groups which is suspiciously similar to the 2018 groups. France, Australia and Denmark were in the same group in Russia 4 years ago. I think France are the best team in that group. World Cup winners in 2018, looking to defend their title. Denmark, dark horses going into the Euros, and did really well, got to the semi-final despite the trauma that they all faced, that all of really football faced, right? So times a million for the players when Eriksen had a cardiac arrest, and thankfully he's back to full fitness, playing well for Man United. He's back in that team. And so I think they'll do quite well, and I'd put Tunisia just ahead of Australia there. Group E, Spain, Costa Rica, Germany and Japan, 2 clear favourites in this group. I'd put Spain just ahead. I like this Spanish team. I think they've done well to evolve from, the excellent team that won 3 major tournaments in a row, from the Euros in 2008 to the Euros in 2012. They obviously at the 2014 World Cup went out in the group stage. Disappointing World Cup last time round, going out to the host Russia. But they showed some good signs in the Euros, and I think they'll do quite well in Qatar. Germany, similar vibe actually. They had to evolve. They had this illustrious roster that helped them win the World Cup in 2014. And you look at their team now, and it's in some ways it's quite similar to England. It's like quite a few young versatile players, and Hansi Flick has got a good team at his disposal, but you'll see what I think about them coming up. But they'll have more than enough to get through this group. I'd put Japan in 3rd and Costa Rica in 4th. Group F, a tight group, I think, a pretty tight group. I think Belgium are the best team, I don't think they get enough stick for how little they've managed to win, right? This Belgium team in tournaments gone past, they've been insane. They've had some of the best players in world football. And I think the best they've done is 3rd in 2018, which, shouldn't be sniffed at for a country the size of Belgium. But you look at their talent, they, I think, should be doing a bit better. They're not in as good a shape as they've been before, and they don't have as many marquee players as they have before, but I think they're the best team. I think they'll win that group. Canada, Morocco and Croatia though, that's pretty tight, right? Because Canada, as I said before, the USA are hosting a World Cup in 4 years time. That's really that's what they're looking at, right? And I think this World Cup was kind of a bonus, the fact that they got to it and did so well in getting to it. Really, really good of them. They've got 2, I guess, outstanding players in Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David. And I think they'll make a good account of themselves, but I can't see them getting through. Morocco, kind of like Canada, are a team which has a couple of really good players, right? And often with African teams, when they come to World Cups, they get lumped in really difficult groups. And I think that's going to count against Morocco here. I would put Croatia as the team that comes in 2nd place, just because Croatia have made a fool of me before. I've thought that for the past couple of tournaments that they were kind of past it, but they just have the talent that gets them through, like that midfield with Luka Modric, who is timeless, a magnificent player. Rakitic, who is showing his age, to be fair, but then Kovacic, who I think is great, and Brozovic, who's been a really, really wonderful servant for Inter Milan. You got Perisic as well, another player that I really like, and I think they'll come through that group. The last dance for those players, for that generation of Croatia players, definitely. So I'd say Canada come in 3rd, Morocco in 4th. Group G, like Group D, a rerun of 2018, right? 3 of these teams are in the same group in Russia. Brazil, I think, are the outstanding team in the tournament. They are the favourites. I think they're just so well-rounded. Serbia and Switzerland are 2 good teams, right? Are 2 evenly matched teams. Serbia progressed in a qualification group ahead of Portugal, and have Mitrovic and Vlahovic and Dusan Tadic, and they can cause anyone problems, right? They can definitely cause anyone problems. Their first game, Serbia, is against Brazil. So that will be interesting, and that counts in Switzerland's favour, who face Cameroon in their first game. And that's why I think Switzerland will just about get through this group, because I think that the Swiss just have this uncanny ability to be better than the sum of their part. Arsenal have been reaping the benefits of Switzerland Xhaka this season. I see no reason, if he's fit, why he doesn't continue that form for the national team. I think they'll just pip Serbia here, and Cameroon finishing bottom. Group H with Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay and South Korea. South Korea, who are obviously not aided by the injury to Son. Touch and go to see whether he'll be fit, and even if he is fit, his form hasn't been that great this season. So I would count them out straight off the bat. Ghana, Cameroon's West African neighbours, are a decent team and beat Nigeria in the playoffs, maybe surprisingly. And I think they'll be pretty good, right? They've got some good players, and they've done this really good thing in drafting in some of the diaspora. I'm looking at like Tarek Lamptey and stuff like that. But I don't think they'll have enough to get through in this group. I think Uruguay are the best team in this group. I think Uruguay could do very well in this tournament. You've got Fede Valverde, who's like arguably the most informed midfielder in the world right now. Bentancur at Spurs, who's been unbelievable this season. Another of my faves, Darwin, who are the reborn Edison Cavani. I think they'll do pretty well this tournament, and Portugal in second, littered with talent. So much talent in that Portuguese national team, but like the criticisms levelled at Southgate, Santos is really conservative and really doesn't get the most out of his team in an attacking sense. It should be enough to get through this group, no doubt, but just behind Uruguay, I think. Right, so that takes us neatly on to the round of 16 with some pretty fun matchups. The first one here, match 49, Netherlands against the USA. I can just imagine this being a really fun game. Think back to USA games in knockout rounds in tournaments that I've been fortunate enough, been alive to witness, and they tend to be quite fun ones, but I despite what I said about the US and their talent and stuff like that, the Netherlands are a really good team, obviously with an outsized influence on world football based on the country's size and their population and all that fun stuff. This isn't a Netherlands team of old with incredible players all over the park, but you'd think they'd have enough to beat the USA. Argentina against Denmark. I feel for Denmark here facing up against Argentina. I can imagine this being a pretty tight affair, but as I said before, Argentina are a smart team. Let's speak about Argentina real quick, because they've been really the in-form international team over the past few years, won the Copa America. I think they've been on a 30-plus unbeaten run in international football. Messi's last dance, and with Messi in the team, anything is possible, right? He's been in ridiculous form for PSG this first half of the season. They're pretty solid, right? As I said, they're in form. And even though I think they could be missing Di Maria, and Dybala's not going to the World Cup, he hasn't really been involved in the national team, really. They are rightly one of the favourites for this competition, and I expect them to make it past Denmark in this matchup. Match 51, England, Qatar. Despite what I said about Qatar and me winking at certain scenarios which could lead them to progress from a group with a much stronger Senegal team, I cannot see them pulling off a ridiculous win against England. And so maybe with a bit of my England hat on, which we'll see a little bit later, I would still put England to come through that one. France, Mexico, nice and easy. Defending champions against Mexico, who never get past the round of 16. I don't think Mexico are going to be getting match 5 this time round. Spain, Croatia, another really fun matchup if this was to take place. Pretty sure in the Euro, Spain and Croatia played out a pretty ridiculous tie. Was that the 5-2? The 5-3. Yeah, Spain prevailing in that one. I think Spain would prevail in this one as well. Brazil, Portugal. Let's speak a bit more about Brazil, who world champions 20 years ago in 2002. In 98, they made it to the final. 94, they won that competition. So late 90s into 2000s, it was par for the course. This is a team that's won more World Cups than anyone else. We all know about the Brazil national team, and we had this kind of stereotyped image of Brazil, right? Flair players who maybe are a bit soft, but have this incredible quality. And by hook or by crook, Brazil have had to evolve. And you see now with their current roster of players who play for the biggest and best teams in Europe, their style has maybe become a bit more functional. Tim Vickery, a South American football expert, made a good point last week about, because of COVID, a lot of South American teams, Brazil in this example, haven't actually played quite a few European teams. And so that'll be interesting to see how they come up against European teams. But the issue used to be that Brazil didn't cope well against European nations. They exited European nations at previous World Cups. But I think they just look too good this time round, right? They got Alisson in goal, and at the back it's going to be Thiago Silva with a partner, maybe Eder Militao, and you've got Casemiro and Fred in midfield, and you've got Gabriel Jesus and Neymar and Vinicius Jr. on the left, and Richarlison's going to be playing up top, and an absolutely stacked team. I don't think Portugal will be able to make it past them. Belgium, Germany. The points I made before about Belgium, I think they should have been doing better at previous World Cups. And I think they'll come unstuck here against Germany. I like this Germany team. They're quite versatile, as I said before. I think Germany will prevail. Uruguay, Switzerland, one for the hipsters. I really like Uruguay, as I've said, and I like Switzerland, but I think Uruguay will have too much in this matchup. Quarterfinals, even more fun. Netherlands against Argentina. I'd back Argentina. Spain, Brazil, that'll be fun, wouldn't it? And I don't think there'll be too much in that game either. But for the reasons I said before about this Brazil team, I'd back Brazil to come through. England, France, hear me out, because France have been known to be combustible. shall we say. France, of course, started this trend in the 21st century of defending champions not being able to make it out of the group. I'm backing them to make it out of the group. They would be bucking that trend that they started in 2002. But even with the issues I have with this England team, I think they are like a good, solid team. The fact that they made it to the final of the Euros, last major tournament, the fact that they made it to the semi-finals of the World Cup, I think that goes a long way. This is a team that has been together for a few cycles now, that has had to go through some testing times in those cycles. They've won a penalty shootout at the last World Cup. They obviously lost one at the Euros, but they've gone deep in some games. They've had to win in extra time in some games. In this particular matchup, it's not aided that they'll be coming up against a team that has won a whole tournament, and that's obviously counts for more. But I think there is definitely a timeline, right, where England do win this game, and I do think that England could, and I'm going to say will, in this scenario, beat France, beat the champions, get us all very excited, and prevail to another World Cup semi-final under the tutelage of Gareth Southgate. The last quarterfinal, match 60, Germany-Uruguay. These exercises are just fun, really, aren't they? Because, like, as I said, you make a fool of yourself. My gut says Uruguay. I think they're really good. I just got this feeling about Uruguay. And look at these semi-finals. Let's start with the second one, match 62. I'm going with England. Unsurprisingly, I'm showing my bias here massively. I like this England team. I think they could do pretty well. But the other semi-final, Argentina-Brazil, I've made points advocating for both these two teams. I've said that with Messi, anything is possible, but Brazil have more good players. They have more quality all over the pitch. Neymar in a Brazil shirt can be a different beast and has been, like Messi, in really, really good form this year. And obviously Messi, all these players obviously want to win a World Cup, right? And Messi's had the failure or the trauma of losing a World Cup final in 2014. And in that same World Cup, Neymar obviously had an injury and has this massive feeling of unfinished business. I just think this Brazil team feels more robust to me. And in this, what would be a classic matchup between these two South American rivals, could be a game for the ages. I would pick Brazil, which would give us a World Cup final, Brazil against England, which would be fun, wouldn't it? Kind of. Could be fun. Despite my persuasion, as you could probably tell, this whole video through, I think Brazil are too good. They are my favourites, the bookies' favourites, as I said, just ahead of France and Argentina. England are fourth favourites. But I think Brazil would have too much, and Brazil would be my winners, I think. But let's see. Now the football's approaching, I'm getting really excited. It should be a good tournament. Fingers crossed it'll be a good tournament, and we'll see who comes out on top.